change the way we live.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Be Creative Stamping. Today we're going to create a note card tote using the Magnolia Lane suite. It's featured in the brand new 2019-20 Stampin' Up! Annual Catalog. Now today's tote is not my original idea. I found a video on YouTube created by a fellow demonstrator, Lisa of Happy Stamp. She had used a different designer paper, and I really wanted to try the Magnolia Lane designer paper. It's one of my favorite suites in the new catalog. Before we get started, I do want to show you where you can find Magnolia Lane. It begins on page 36 of the new annual catalog, and it ends on page 38. And here at the top, you can see this beautiful offering of designer paper. To create your tote, you're going to need designer paper and cardstock that is pre-cut and pre-scored. So I'm going to start with the designer paper. I've already cut mine, but just pretend that this is a 12 by 12 sheet of designer paper. You will insert it into your Stampin' trimmer and you will cut it at 6 inches. Therefore, it's going to be in half and you can layer the two together. Again, you're going to insert it into the Stampin' trimmer, and this time you're going to cut that designer paper at 8.5 inches. So you'll have two pieces of designer paper measuring 6 inches by 8.5 inches. You'll need 4 mossy meadow circles. These are the handles of the tote. One will be attached to the outside and one will be attached to the inside. So let me show you which circles to use. They're actually from the Layering Circles Framelits dies. And I'm going to measure these for you. The largest one that you're going to need to use is about 3 1/8 inch wide, okay, or that's the diameter, okay, about 3 1/8. And then this one, you're going to need 2 5/8. And what you'll do is you just take scrap paper, put your large circle on the paper, and then you are actually going to center this smaller circle inside of the larger circle. And then you can roll this through your Big Shot, and when it comes out, you're going to have a circle that looks like this. So just remember that you need 4 of these. You'll also need another piece of mossy meadow, and this sheet of cardstock is measuring 3 inches by 6.5 inches. Then you'll want to take your scoring tool and score on all 4 sides of the paper at 1/2 inch. So this is the 1/2 inch right here, and you'll score all 4 sides. You're going to also need 2 additional pieces of mossy meadow, and let's measure these. Again, you do need 2. This measures 1 inch by 5.5 inches. And 2 more little strips right here. These are actually longer. These measure 1/2 inch by 8 3/8 of an inch. And I don't have the 3/8 there on the end to show you, but it's 8 3/8 of an inch. And you do need 2 of those. Now, for the gift tag that goes on the outside of the tote, you're going to need 1 of the circle stitch shapes, and it's in mossy meadow. And I brought the dies over here to show you. It is actually this one right here. So it is the second one from smallest to largest. You'll also need a sheet of petal pink. This will be the tag on the outside. And this measures 2 inches by 3 3/4 of an inch. Now, sometimes it's hard to keep all these measurements straight. So right under this video on my blog, you will find a supply list, and it does include all the supplies and all the measurements. So if you're on YouTube, be sure to click the link in the description of the video and head on over to my blog to download and print a supply list. To get started with our tote, we're actually going to create the bottom first. And so we're going to take our paper snips and we're going to cut on that score line up to the first score line. And you're going to do this on all 4 sides. And then once this is cut, you can actually go ahead and fold all your score lines. Now, usually when we create a box, we always want these inside flaps to go inside. But if you do that, when you look inside the tote, you will see those flaps. And so for today's purpose, we are going to put those flaps on the outside of the box. They will get covered up and you're not going to see it. So let's start with some taryn tape, and I'm going to show you, let's see, we're going on the outside. So I'm just going to put a little bit of taryn tape right here on this flap. You're going to do this with all 4 flaps. So I'm just going to go ahead and do one of these for you and show you how that's done. So see the flap on the outside? Now you'll take the time and go ahead and do the other 3. Okay, I have put taryn tape on the ends of the last 2 flaps. I'm going to bring it up and I am going to close this. So now we have the bottom of the box, okay? All right, we're going to bring that designer paper back in, and we're going to measure this designer paper. Let's see, we want to measure it at 4 1/4 inches, okay? And let's see, I have an ink pen right here, and I am going to just put a little tick mark right there. Oops, 4 1/4. The tick mark needs to be at 4 1/4. Don't worry if you get pencil or ink on the designer paper, because this part will be punched out. And let's see, we can put it on the second one, although I'm going to show you how you can punch both at the very same time, okay? I put it at 4 1/4 because this is the halfway point, okay? Because remember, this is 8 1/2 inches long, and so 4 1/4 is the middle, all right? And so I'm going to bring in my 2 1/4 inch circle punch, and I'm going to find that tick mark, and I'll bring this up here so you can see it. And I'm actually inserting the punch about 3/4 into the paper, okay? And I'm just guessing that to be my, my midpoint. And actually, I'll line it up with that little circle right there. Hopefully that's in the center. All right, and I'm able to punch both at the very same time, okay? All right. Now we can go ahead and we will add our handles. You are going to want Tombow glue for this. All right, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of Tombow glue all the way around this circle, okay? And it doesn't have to be a lot. The nice thing about using the Tombow is we can move it a little bit if we need to, okay? We'll have some wiggle room while the glue is drying. All right, so I'm going to pick this one up. Let's move that one out of the way. And I am going to position this about right here. And you're going to see that, that you'll be able to, you'll see the designer paper peeking through, okay? Just like that. And again, I'm trying to get it straight, and as you can see, I am able to wiggle this a little bit before the glue dries. Now I'm going to flip this over, and I am going to bring this other circle in, and I'm going to lay it right on top of that other circle to line it up. And I can take a paper towel just to wipe off this glue right here. I'm going to take the second piece of designer paper, and I'm going to do the very same thing that I did with the first piece. I am working on the second piece now and getting those handles attached. And I did find that picking up my scissors, my tweezers helped a lot. If you have the Take Your Pick tool, that will also work really well. So now both handles are attached to each piece of designer paper. Now at this point, we're ready to add some taryn tape. And this is our very first one. So let's just run taryn tape along the bottom. Okay, this is the first piece of designer paper, and I already have the taryn tape there. Now I'm going to take the second piece, and we're going to do the same thing. We'll run it across the bottom. Let's see if I can find where this starts again. Okay, alrighty. All right, so we're just gonna, whoops, let me do that. Okay. So we're just going to run this across the bottom, and we're going to also run it across the sides, okay? All right. So here we go. And then we have one more side. And this is what both pieces should look like right now. We're now ready to add the designer paper to the tote, okay? And let's peel this off. I'm going to use my paper snips to lift under this paper and pull that off. And we're going to want to make sure that we center this. And let's see, a couple of ways to do this. All right, I think I'm going to do it like this. So this is my taryn tape right here, okay? I am going to attach my box, and I want to be sure that I have equal amount of designer paper on the left side as well as the right, okay? All righty, let's see. You can certainly hold this in your hands if you want and do it that way. And you really don't need to measure. You can just eye it, okay? All right, so now that first piece is attached. Now I'm ready to just wrap the sides around the box, okay? And I'm even just kind of rubbing this corner just a little bit. And I'm going to attach it on this side as well, okay? So, you know, I'm not pinching this all the way to the top. I'm just kind of pinching on the corner, okay? So now the first part of that tote bag is done. Now for the second part, we're going to need to peel all three of these strips, and I have actually found it best just to do all three at one time. All right, so that's the first one. And this is going to be the second one. And then this one, okay? Oops. Sometimes it can just be tricky getting this paper off. Okay, so now that is done, and we're ready to do the very same thing again. We're definitely going to want to center the box onto this paper, and we do want to be sure to have equal amounts of designer paper, okay? And now this can be a little tricky, and I think what I'm going to do this time is And I don't know if you'll be able to see this. I am actually going to add the designer paper and be sure that I'm getting equal amounts on both sides, okay? So as you can see, there's more than one way to get the designer paper onto the bottom of the box, okay? All right, and then I am actually ready to wrap this around to this side, just like this. All right. And then the side just kind of wants, it'll just fall into place actually. Okay, so there's the side. It just fell right into place right there. And because it's kind of a busy designer paper, you really don't see that seam. All right, over on this side, and this is the last part, I'm going to round that corner with designer paper, make that little pleat right there, and now I'm ready to close this side, okay? Now this is where you can take your bone folder, and I see that I don't have mine over here, so I'm going to use my ruler. I just want to get inside of the tote and just make sure that everything is stuck, okay, that is together. All right, and there we have our tote, and by doing it like that, our handles do meet in the center, okay? All right, so now we're ready to add these strips to the very bottom, and we will need to add taryn tape to these as well. So this project takes lots of taryn tape and a little bit of Tombow glue. And you can just run this right down the center of the cardstock. All right. And now we're going to be ready to add these. And of course we have to lift up this paper again. All right. And now we're going to add this along the bottom. So let me show you one of the original totes. We're going to run it along the bottom of the tote, okay? And we're actually going to start on the side. And I'm going to start about right here, just right here on the end. All right. And that's the first side, okay? And then I'm going to round this corner. All right, and I can just kind of rub that in to put a little score line there. Okay. And then run this along the bottom. And now I can close this up here. Whoops, I did push too hard on that. All right, so that's the first part. And now we're going to add the second strip. So let's get the paper off of this one. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start here. Did you see how I overlapped that? I'm just going to start on an end. And then I'm going to wrap it around the front of the tote. Or maybe this is the back. I haven't decided yet. Whichever side looks the best, that will be the front. Okay, and so now it just goes along this side and it overlaps right there. And you really can't even see that seam. Okay, so now the bottom of your tote is done. We have 2 pieces of cardstock left, and what we're going to do is adhere them to the sides, okay? So I'll show you what it looks like on the original, and that just kind of covers up the seam, all right? And you will want to put 2 pieces of taryn tape on each of these strips, okay? And once that's done, you can peel it off. See if I can get this one off. There we go. That may be the hardest part of the whole project. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to center this. Okay, And we're just going to run this up to the top of the tote. All right, so that really goes on pretty well and pretty quickly, okay? And then what you might want to do is take your bone folder or your ruler and just kind of rub it in there to make sure that that taryn tape did hold, okay? So that's one side, and then we have the other. So let's go ahead and get this taryn tape off. Okay. And now we're going to do this again. Now this time, the seam is a little over here to this side. So I don't know if you can see that or not. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run that cardstock right up along the seam. All right. And you know, like I've said before, the designer paper is busy and you're really not going to notice that seam. So if it doesn't cover it or match up too well, I really don't think you have to worry about that too much, okay? We're going to go ahead and create the tag for this tote. And so let's get a good look at that. We're going to be stamping hello, and the hello is actually from the Good Morning Magnolia. So let me show you the stamp set right here. We're going to be using this flower today. And then in the second case, we're going to be using the word hello. But this is one stamp set, and this is what it looks like. You've got this really large magnolia flower, and then you have a smaller bloom here. And there are some really nice greetings in the set. Now it does have coordinating dies, so let me get those. And they're right here. And so it does include several dies. Some you stamp with and cut out. For example, we're going to stamp this flower and we're going to cut it out today using this framelit. But you'll find leaves, and there's also ways to even build your own magnolia blooms. Okay, so really, really nice set. And then we're going to stamp hello, and we'll go ahead and do that. And we're going to use Mossy Meadow ink. And again, don't forget about the supply list, okay? It's going to be over on my blog, so don't miss it. And it's got measurements. All right, and then also on the scrap paper, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp the bloom in black memento ink. And that's really important because we're going to color with Stampin' Blends today. All right, so to cut out hello, let me show you another cool die set. And this just came out in the new annual catalog as well. It's called Stitch Nested Labels. There are 9 of these. And we're going to use this label to cut out the word hello. And then, of course, I've already showed you the framelit for the flower. This will also get cut out using a die. Let's create our tag, and then we'll do the coloring. So we have this new nifty punch, and it's called Delightful Tag Topper. And what's nice about this is you can create tags in 3 different sizes. And so we're going to start with the 2-inch sheet of petal pink cardstock, and we're going to insert it into the guide here, and the paper's going to lay right there between that guide, and we're going to punch. And when we punch, we get this beautiful ornate top, okay? And now we're ready to go ahead and add. I've taken the time to do the stamping and the cutting. So now we're going to add some dimensionals right here. You'll see that I actually had to flip this over and re-stamp. So a couple of dimensionals there, and then you can put the word hello about right there, okay? So now let's get to the coloring. That's the fun part. If I can pick up my flower here, and I'll go ahead and zoom in so that you can see what I'm doing. All right, I'm going to start with soft suede, and I'm going to start with the lightest Stampin' Blend, and I'm going to go ahead and just color this stem just like that. Okay, and I think the light will be just fine. I probably don't need to make it darker. Then I'm going to add some Mossy Meadow, and I'm going to start with the light Stampin' Blend. And I'm going to go ahead and just color this in. All right, and I'm thinking this is a leaf, so I'm just going to go ahead and color that. Hopefully I'm doing that correctly. And of course, the little leaves down here need to be colored. So we'll get that done. If you don't have Mossy Meadow, I think I would try Old Olive. That would probably be a good substitute. All right. And let's see. Let's go ahead and color that one. I'm assuming that is a leaf as well. And by the way, if you're never sure, you can always look in the annual catalog or idea book. Just look in there and it probably will show you a colored sample. I'm going to bring the dark Mossy Meadow in, and I am going to just define this, the veins of the leaf right there, just like Stampin' Up! Has done in the stamped image. All right, and then I'll just color a little bit of this. Okay. And I can go back and use some more light Mossy Meadow if I want. All right, so let's color with Petal Pink. And this is the light Petal Pink. So I'm going to go ahead and get this colored in here. And then we're going to go back and we're going to add some of the darker Petal Pink. Okay. And you can see that I'm not really spending a whole lot of time doing the coloring. All right, now let's bring in the dark right here. And I'm going to make this one darker, this petal. And I think I'm going to make this one darker too. And then I'm just going to kind of highlight that right where those lines are. I think Stampin' Up's really done the homework for us. They put in those lines, which are like shadows, and that can really help us with our coloring. All right, so I'm just kind of outlining here, and then I'm going to go back with the light, and I'm just going to blend that in. All right. So in the new annual catalog, we have new colors. We have Rococo Rose, so saffron, gray granite, purple posy, and seaside spray, and I think pretty peacock. So we have like 5 or 6 new colors in Stampin' Blends. All right. So our Magnolia's done, and we're going to pop it up onto our tag. All right, so let me just flip this over. And you can tell here that I had to restamp the flowers. So I'm really using my scrap paper today. I'm going to put a few little minis over here. I know it's hard for you to see because I had stamped on this side. But this is what I have, all right? So I just had a little fun with those dimensionals. And now I'm going to peel off the paper. All right, and I need to find my tag. Oh, and something else I need to do. We're going to use a Mossy Meadow stitched circle, and I'm going to pop this up too. So just popping the whole thing, making it really fun. So you could definitely create this tote in lots of different designer papers. So it's really fun to see how they turn out. And so that's why I was inspired to create the tote, because I just wanted to see Magnolia Lane created in a tote. Okay. All right, so now we're ready to add this to the side of our bag. And I'm going to show you the ribbon that comes with this, and I'm going to zoom back out. In the Magnolia Lane suite, we have Magnolia Lane ribbon combo pack. And so you get 5 yards of this ribbon, And then you get 5 yards of this Mossy Meadow Baker's twine. And so it's really fun to create with, and I love this ribbon. All right, so what I'm going to do is just run this ribbon right through the hole here. All right, and then I'm just going to add it to the bag. Just like this. Okay, and I think I'll go ahead and we'll put a little knot here. You can add it any way that you want. It is your tote. All right, and now I'm going to take my ribbon scissors and I'm going to go in and finish it off. And we have a wonderful tote. Now, if you like this tote and all the product that I've shown you today, you can find it in my online store. Just type in the URL www.shopwithbecreativestamping.com, and this is the June 2019 hostess code. And if you're not working with a demonstrator, I would love to work with you. So feel free to shop in my store and always feel free to email me with questions. Now, if you're on YouTube, look in the description below, click the blog link and head over to my blog and pick up your supply list with measurements. Thanks so much for joining me today, and thank you for buzzing by.
Time can really change the way we live. Focused on the sharing and the chance we have to